Okay, we are at Kollective Coffee. The date is April the 4th, 2019. My name is Kevin Pumphrey. This is Mr. Ron Franklin.
Hey.
And we have students from Lakeside High School ignoring us to some degree.
I see one or two
Okay,
that are
some
looking
are
this way. All right,
looking at us.
yeah, there we go. More
Hey,
are.
by the way, y'all give it up for Miss Abby Hanks, who makes all of this
Yeah.
possible. She doesn't get enough love. We wouldn't be here. She came up with this whole thing, so yeah, our executive producer and director and editor.
Thank you to Kollective Coffee for hosting this event.
Yes,
Once
thank
a
you
month
very much.
for 2 years now. That's awesome.
Yeah, go buy a bagel, everyone. Okay. First question is, state your name for the record.
Ian Hollis.
And what is your question?
So I was just wondering what you would like to comment on kind of the recent series of wins, you could say, for the conservative side in regards to, like, for example, Trump's veto was upheld, and which kind of sent $1 billion towards the border wall, as well as Michael Avenatti's arrest, and also the Green New Deal getting no votes.
Is that one question?
Yeah, just
kind of
the.
like
How about the latest in politics? How about that?
All right.
Okay, well, let's start by saying we were in Europe, so actually some of this stuff we missed because we got back last week.
Sure, yeah.
At least I missed, and I didn't actively get back on Twitter to see what was going on. Actually, I missed completely I heard Avenatti got arrested. I have no idea why. So.
I think it was domestic violence, but I wasn't quite
Oh,
sure.
good
Okay,
grief.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
So your actual question is,
Well,
what
just
are
like-
our thoughts on that?
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's kind of just a series of wins towards, like, you could say wins for Trump or wins for the conservative side, but
It's interesting that you use the word win, like
Okay.
there's some sort of
it's not.
America versus America thing going on.
Yeah, not at all. We're all in this together.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you could say a lot of people are out for Trump in the sense that they're looking for some reason to bring him down, and this could be seen on the other side of
Yeah, well, okay. Sure.
I think you got to start with the Mueller Report. We don't know much about what's in it, but that if there's a win for Trump, that's a huge win so far. Now, once again, there could be stuff in it that we haven't heard about, but as far as we know, what Attorney Barr has said, he's not implicated or he's not exonerated, but he's not guilty. And as far nobody else is indicted, I think that's a huge win for Trump and his supporters. I think his veto, that was pretty easy to see coming, though. I don't know if that's a win, really.
Yeah, well, you expected that, I think. Focusing on the Mueller thing like you just did, there were some people, I think, who were overly critical because it didn't show some sort of implicit collusion by the president with outside forces. And so isn't that a good thing, though? I mean, if regardless of what people's opinion of Trump is or is not, the idea that a special prosecutor spent several grueling months digging through just about everything he could and did find some things for some people who needed to be stopped, right? There was, how many indictments did they have out of that report,
Well,
out of that investigation, I mean? And so for it to come back, I think is I don't want to say win for Trump, because I think it's better for the country in the long run to have clarification, because there were questions about his moral character and his stance with Russia, and is he using his office to personally benefit? If all those things are now clarified to be untrue, then great for us. I think that's a win for America, that we don't have a president that's in some sort of legal jeopardy or is treasonous. I mean, I think that's a positive thing. So I don't know. Again, I kind of question the idea about saying it's a win for Trump or a win for anybody else. I think we're all better off if that's the absolute case. And we will see once more of the report is made public, or at least to Congress, and they can comment on it. Then we can see. I think that it may be too early to say it's finalized and you put a nail in the coffin and that's all of it. It's probably not all of it. And I do agree with you, though, that there are people who were gunning for him, hoping that this was going to drag him down. I just don't know that that's – I mean, if he was guilty, do that. But if not, let's clarify that and move on.
Yeah, I remember on the first podcast we recorded after Trump was elected, we were both shocked once again that Trump was elected. But I don't think either one of us was Hillary Clinton, just
No, not
all
necessarily,
gung-ho
no.
supporters either. We were both saying in the campaign, these two, this is it, really? But once he was elected, we both kind of came to the agreement, if you're an American, you want your president to succeed. You want goodness. You want him to do well. I still stand by that. even though he might be hated by half the country or 60% of the country or whatever. And I know people wanted blood. They wanted him to go down. But you really don't. Impeachment and having your president on trial and all, that would be horrific for us. What you would like to happen is this thing go out with a whimper and not with a bang, so to speak.
Yeah. So what else? List out some of the other things that you were talking, because I missed some of it. Say it again.
Well, the Green New Deal, it got no yes votes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
The Green New Deal was DOA. I mean, I just don't see how that was going to be. Some of the things that she was advocating for, I don't think that was ever any. I don't think anybody ever actually took it seriously that there was going to be a green law initiative where we were going to, curb the cattle industry and all of those things. But I think that it starts, at least there's a conversation about what can we do to be more environmentally conscious, and because we do have to live on the planet, not just make money from it, right? And so
I think the Democratic Party is super split right now, as split as it's been since the 1920s.
Yeah. How many candidates are already announced?
1,342.
Uh-huh.
I just put my name in yesterday, so
just
vote
today,
for me.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think that there's going to be some. They may divide up in weird ways and see what the nomination's going to look like.
You've got Bernie people, and then you got AOC people, which might be the same. They're definitely to the left of the Democratic Party. And then you got moderates like Warren and Biden. You see a split in the Democratic Party on how to handle Trump and how to handle the economy and how far to go socialism way. But in the 1920s, if you recall, we had another split in the Democratic Party between northern city immigrants and elites versus old Southern Democrats from the Confederacy. They didn't see eye to eye on anything, yet they were both Democrat. I don't know if it's that bipolar yet, but it's interesting to see, will the Democratic Party unify behind one candidate? Or if they go too far to the left, will part of the Democratic Party split off? Will they go?
Do you think that, speaking of Sanders, do you think he missed his shot when he didn't get the nomination last time? Because a lot of the things he was the first to say and advocate for, now other people have picked up as their platform.
I know, yeah.
He may be drowned out.
He was just a little too early. People were kind of shocked. And then, of course, it was kind of arranged where he wouldn't get the nomination.
Kind of arranged? No.
I kept saying, I hope he doesn't get the Democratic nomination because he's going to have to spend 6 months explaining what socialism is to Americans and how it's not communism. Yet, looking back, I think he could have beat Trump because they both presented an option for change, which apparently America wanted some sort of change, whether it's Trump or Bernie. I think Bernie could have won. Hillary presented status quo.
I think it would have been closer. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but go back to the Avenatti thing. I don't know enough about that to comment on it, honestly. So,
Well, do you think Bernie will receive the nomination anyway? Even like,
you mean now?
Do you think they would give him the nomination because previously he said he would refuse it or
No.
something? Yeah.
No, I don't think that's the case.
I'm ready for a new generation.
How old is he?
98, 99? No, that's not true. 75.
Okay.
That's a shot in the dark. But I think he's around 75.
Is that younger than Trump? I don't know.
No, he's about a year or two older than Trump.
Oh, he's older. Okay. I don't. Yeah. Let's get some new people in and see what they have to say. I think that'd be nice. Nothing against oldness, because I'm older now. But hello, sir.
All right, my name is Chase Hartzell, and on a completely different note, my question is, who would you personally consider to be the greatest male vocalist of the 20th century?
Of the 20th century, not currently. Well, there's Pavarotti. It's one of those tenors probably in Italy. One of the three tenors, is that what they are? There's a guy named David Phelps who is a tenor from a group called, it just escaped me, Gaither Vocal Band. He's a great vocalist. He's still all online right now. But then, I'm talking about, these are skilled, classically trained vocalists that can hit notes and hold them out powerfully in their chest, which I can't do. But then you have unique vocals. So we can talk about
What about female vocalist, more pop, but let's say like Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she had a strong voice.
Yeah. Celine Dion, she can sing. You can make fun of her music, but man,
What about I'm still trying to think about women. How about Whitney Houston?
Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
All that group is insane. Yeah. And then you have people like the lead singer for like bands like Chicago or Queen. Freddie Mercury was a great vocalist. You know. So
who's the boy from who's the guy from Chicago, or let's say, I don't know. Do you count Dennis DeYoung from Styx as a strong vocalist? It depends on your
I don't know
whether you like that warble or not.
Well, yeah, and then you got like AC/DC. You know, he could do something that very few people on earth can do. Axl Rose, another great vocalist.
I read that Axl Rose has the I don't know how to phrase it, has the greatest range, the greatest vocal range of anybody of the 20th century. Is that, you think that's accurate? Or of a rock star, I mean, maybe.
Maybe. The greatest vocal range, I think, was owned by a guy named Tim Storms, who is the lowest bass singer ever. And so it's like a piano.
Is that the guy that only whales can hear?
Well, yeah, basically. Yeah. Well, okay, you take a piano, go to the lowest note, and they get another piano going down from the lowest note on down, and that's where he's at. He goes so low you can't hear.
You have to have seismic.
It's measured by hertz, and you can feel the vibration, but your ears can't hear. Wow. But his vocal cords, the folds in his vocals are twice as long as a normal person's. So he's just a mutant.
He's a freak of nature.
Tim Storms, you can look him up. He's the Guinness Book of World Records. Also, if you want to know today, there's a guy named Dimash. I don't know if you've heard of this guy.
Who?
Dimash. If you type in D-I-MASH, M-A-S-H, and look up a song called SOS that he did live, it would take me 30 minutes to explain why he's, I think, the number one vocalist on the planet, male or female right now. He can hit a high E in his falsetto. That's impressive for a girl to hit, much less a guy. And he has a voice like mine. He can go as low as I can. So he's a good, solid 7 octaves of...
Who in pop music or rock would have the worst vocalization?
Bob Dylan? Bob Dylan?
Probably. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Is there someone worse? I mean,
well, there's country people. You got to like that. I mean, you got to like George Jones or Randy Travis. You kind of got to like that. But as far as like skilled, Toby Keith, you know, people like that, you just got to like that. Or
Chris Stapleton has good range.
Oh, now that's another monster. Yeah. He's not one of those old school country guys though.
Okay, so we danced all around that, so
yeah, it's hard to say greatest.
Okay, so which Democratic candidate?
Say your name.
Oh, I'm Hayes Horton.
Okay.
Which Democratic candidate do you think has the best chance of winning the primary, and what do you think has the best chance of beating Trump?
Has Joe Biden declared?
Biden has declared.
From everything I've heard from both sides of the aisle, Trump is most scared of Joe Biden. He probably has the name. He's a moderate. They could, have an old contest to see who's older, but I think Joe Biden. Yeah. Although he's been in the news for massaging people a little too closely, so that might hurt him, but who knows? Look, the thing about Trump...
I saw a political cartoon that said it was like Biden and some advisor looking at his new campaign slogan poster, and it was like, Biden can't stop the feeling. And people were like, maybe you should reconsider that. I don't know.
Yeah. Can't stop the feeling. Hey, here's the thing about this coming up election. Trump had around 30% support when he started running. He had 30% support when he became president. He has 30% support now. He's going to have 30% support forever. So that's his. So the question is, what Democrat can unify the rest to beat him? Because he's going to have his 30% no matter what happens. He was right when he said he could shoot somebody and no, he wouldn't lose a single voter. He's right. People that love Trump forever. So who is the most unifying of the Democrats?
I don't know how to answer that now anyway.
I think it's going to be a moderate. I think if AOC or Booker or Kamala Harris or one of those younger ones, I just don't think they're going to be able to unify the older Democrats that still want some moderation and centrist.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you have someone who's a little more leftist or left on the line, then I think that you're going to alienate a large percentage of the older voters who are going to make up the bulk of the people who vote. So, but that doesn't mean that the moderate person, whoever that happens to be, won't pick up on some of those touchstone elements from the other campaigns. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting to watch it all play out, though, considering how many there are, and we'll watch it whittle down and who sort of takes the lead over whom else and why is that. And then also thinking about it from a Trump perspective, how does he approach his, I wonder if he's already sort of gearing up attack mode ideas about which candidates may be stronger and how he can maybe undermine their political stability. I don't know. We'll see.
If you're a smart Democrat, and if you're still in it in 1 year, you look at see who the leader is, and you go right to the right of them to try to get some of those independents and Republicans that don't like Trump. That's whoever does that the best will, I think, be the Democratic nominee. And then all bets are off once the debates happen. Okay?
Very good.
Any other questions?
Jordan Lyle, do you think that Trump will ever succeed in building the wall?
Well, he's already building the wall.
The wall that he campaigned on, no. The idea about it being, what was it, 40? I mean, how high was it supposed to be? I don't know, it's going to be big and beautiful, whatever it is. That concept, solid wall, concrete, for the length of the border, I don't think that's going to ever be a reality. Nor do I think it should be a reality. Ask the French about the Maginot Line if we think about walls and how well they work.
Remember when the Mexican president insulted him, the former Mexican president? He goes, the wall
Vicente
just
Fox?
got 10 feet taller.
Yeah. So, but I do think that there will be more funding continuously for more improvements on the wall that already exists and maybe expanding parts of it. I think that's probably going to be what we see. But, is it the steel slat thing or whatever? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be this multi-billion-dollar fortress, mega barrier. I don't think it's going to be a thing.
I think if he gets more money for the wall, it'll be through some sort of legislative bundle where he'll have to give something, and then they'll put some more wall money into some sort of...
Yeah, I mean, he's getting money for improvements, but that's, again, the vision that he campaigned on, I just don't see that as a reality. What do you think about, let's go tangential from that, do you think about him closing the border potentially?
I know, it's pretty scary. It's like $7.5 billion trade a day with Mexico.
Yeah. Are they our second or third largest trading partner? Yeah.
It's when we've always kind of had a free trade with Mexico and Canada. It's part of NAFTA, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not a good idea. Why would... Oh, just to get more clout?
Well, no, it's the idea that there because there's a log jam on the immigration issue, and apparently more and more people who are coming to try to get through and seek asylum and all of that, he's just like, well, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to close the border completely, and that'll be that.
I know.
And I don't... For a guy who markets himself as business savvy and the art of the deal, like closing the border is massively problematic because again, to go back to the amount of goods and services that flow across that border every single day, the immigration crisis issues are completely separate from that. So take it and just sort of pocket it for a second, and they have to figure out how to deal with it. But closing the border to traffic back and forth, tremendous commerce. If that doesn't matter to the country, like, I don't know what else.
Well, and this is the thing that bothers me the most about Trump is he'll say something like this, and now we have to talk about it. What's going to happen? Is he going to close the border?
Yeah.
When generally speaking, it's just a lot of rhetoric and talk just to get maybe some more what he wants. And
I hope this is just rhetoric and talk,
I do
because
too.
if he does it, man.
What about, did you hear that Republican parties are going to be the party of health care?
Yeah, that's cute.
Which was news to Republicans. And he said he would reveal his health care plan after the 2020 election.
Right. I have a plan. You can't see it.
You got to love it. We live in strange times, people.
Do you think he wakes up in a different world every day?
I think he cares about the current moment.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look too far in the past or too far in the future.
That sounds accurate. That's an interesting way to live your life, huh?
Yeah, we're supposed to live in the moment, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm not running the country.
Yeah, me neither. I don't want my president to live in the moment.
How do I feel right now?
All right. Do we have another question?
It's me again.
Hello, me.
Okay. So, the term socialism, it seems to be like really vaguely defined. Like, you have people like Bernie Sanders and AOC calling themselves a democratic socialist, and then you have like Lenin, who's a communist and would denounce them as like bourgeois, whatever.
Right.
So how would you guys define socialism?
Well, socialism, if we take the root word, is about society and improving it. So the word itself is fairly harmless. How you approach fixing society and the ills that may be common to more people than are thought. The original socialists were the ones who was like, when the age of capitalism came on and we had the factory systems and you had people that were being crushed by the system and being spit out the other side, then you end up with people who are advocating for those poor workers. Is it right to work someone 18, 20 hours a day for little or no pay? Is it right for them to live in the squalid conditions that they do? Can't feed their family, can't support themselves, really have no rights, no chance to unionize, no arbitration rights at all. If you get sick or hurt, there's nothing you can do. There's no compensation. There's no help for you. There's no safety net under that situation. So when we have that 1800s through the mid 1800s, when the Communist Manifesto was written, that was the whole idea. Let's help these people who are obviously being crushed by this system. How you do that is up for debate. How much do you give help? How much do you cut down on working hours? How much do you improve working conditions? What's the goal ultimately? Is it to crush business, or is it to lift up workers, or can you find some interesting moderation between both things? You can do both. And so we have to go candidate by candidate and moment by moment, depending on what they want. Where does the money come from to do the social programming? It's going to have to come from somebody who has the money. The governments can't just print money. I mean, they can, but they shouldn't. That's a horrible idea. So you have to get it from either business or people who already have it, and they're going to be reluctant to let that go. So that's where the argument actually comes from. How dare you cut back our workers to only 12 hours a day? Well, I can only work them half a day. You're killing me, right? That's what was said. So socialism itself is not a problematic term necessarily. There are socialists who want there to be complete government control over all industry, like those kinds of socialists. Then there are ones who say, well, let's have a more moderate approach to it, and let's have conditions that are enabling people to be lifted up even just a little bit so that they can get on their feet and they can compete. So it sort of depends. Like, which one are we talking about? There are good forms of socialism because, and we can say this, and I know I've said it before in class, but if you enjoy going to a public school, that's socialism. If you enjoy anything that's taxpayer-based that then comes back in services to the people, that's a socialist-style program. But it doesn't mean that we're our Leninist, Marxist, revolutionary style, let's gut the middle class or the upper classes and have this, flip of the bourgeois so that we can lift up all workers. Like, that's not the same thing.
Have we ever had a true communist country? Not
No.
just a military dictatorship disguised as a communist country?
No, it's never been implemented the way that it was envisioned. And I don't know that it could be, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
Right? There's a kind of socialism that creates a lack of competition, which then drives things into a stagnation, which then causes people to fall apart. And all of a sudden you get shortages, and all of a sudden you have starvation, and all of a sudden you have people who are trying to immigrate out of a country, and you don't have businesses that can compete because they need government support in order to work because they're completely ineffective. But then you can also do it the right way, right? Unbridled socialism is a bad thing, just as like unbridled capitalism is a bad thing. So again, if you can moderate both those things and make life better for more people, I think that's the ultimate goal.
Do you mind if I follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
People like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, they're really not that different in policy. And so what do you think it is that will differentiate Warren, who's very friendly with the middle class and wants to do the same things as Bernie, but changes her label and stuff?
I'd have to see the specific policies to be able to comment more thoroughly. Sorry.
My whole thing with the president is we put way too much stock in the president because Congress still has to pass this stuff. And until we figure out a way to reform campaign finance, which, by the way, is one of Bernie's things, until we figure out a way to get people truly representing the people and not spending 70% of their time worrying about raising money, nothing is really going to change of note, I don't think. 70-30, that's about what they spend 70% of their time raising money, 30% of their time actually doing stuff, being in committee meetings and talking about policy. And that used to be reversed. It used to be 30-70. So that needs to be reformed. Then maybe all the stuff the presidents are promising can actually be done.
Let me throw another angle at you, because in our state and also across the nation, there's this increased push for vouchers. Let's give taxpayers their dollars back in the form of a voucher so that they can take their kids to whatever school they want to, and they can get out of a public school if they think that they need to get out. What people don't typically understand about that situation is that the tax dollars which are earmarked for school funding can really only be used for that particular thing. If you take it out, which again kind of a socialist thing, if you take that money out, it's going to go somewhere. Give it to someone as a voucher, and they can go to a private school, or they can go to a private institution, which they may have to pay more money on top of that, by the way. The voucher might not cover all those costs. But what that really is just taking that socialist ideology that was meant for the masses and handing it to individuals who then are actually feeding it back to corporations, which are going to control those private institutions. Walmart in particular is funding a massive campaign to try to get vouchers so that they can benefit from the fact that they're going to run some of these schools. So really, it's a gift to corporations in this country, which is like corporate welfare. People don't understand that. That money's going to go somewhere. Do you want it to go to a corporation, or do you want it to go to individual people who can, or the masses of people who can actually benefit it from it more directly? I think it's sometimes we label it one thing, but it's actually disguised as, let's take money from middle class and poorer people and let's hand it to people who already have money so that they don't have to spend any more than they already do, which I think is ass backwards the way we run a country.
All right, next question.
Catherine Calandro. So I was wondering that if either of you were to run for president or any political office, what would your campaign slogan be?
Love me because I do. I don't know. I don't know. That's I've never thought about that. Have you?
No, I haven't. Wow, you've stumped us. We've never thought through.
What would my campaign slogan be? We can't do bread for all. That's already been taken.
Yeah, peace, land, and bread. Make America great. No, that's taken.
Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. I'm wearing an AC/DC T-shirt, so that makes sense. I don't know. I have to think that through more.
We're not gonna take it.
That's right.
No.
That's okay. So that's better. Yeah, with your campaign song, right?
Yes.
Do you think it's weird that Trump used "You Can't Always Get What You Want" as his campaign song?
Yeah. But if you cry sometimes, is that?
It seems fitting now, but it was bizarre at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just got to be honest with the American people and say, look, in order for this whole thing to work, a third of you need to die. No, it's not true. There's not enough fish in the oceans. There's not enough.
Natural selection.
We're running out of oil. It's purge time.
Yeah. Well, no, I think the support me or die thing's been used before as well. So I don't know that you can. That's nothing new.
Yeah. It's hard to be original anymore.
Deus Vult. God wills it. You know, maybe. I don't know.
All right. Who is next?
That's kind of fun to think about, though.
Yeah.
That's like, what do you want on your tombstone? You know, it's the same kind of.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, my name is Trinity Tarvin, and my question is, what do you think about our phones listening to what we say and then having like apps listening to what we say?
Yeah.
And then giving us ads related to what we say later? Like,
what do I think about that?
Yeah, like
scares the hell out of me is what I think about it.
That's a huge, complicated ball of yarn. Is algorithms and that advertise specifically for you. You've done it. You've done a Google search for something, and then all of a sudden it's on Facebook. Like,
well,
hey, wait.
You've had the moment where you were just having a conversation with your friends, and the next time you turn on your phone, there's an ad for the thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's freaky.
You know, when you Google something, you think that's just between you and Google. And somehow Google and Facebook are together. And you're like, hey, I thought this was just between us. And they're, no.
Something extra freaky. One time I Googled who will take over the world, and it kept bringing me back to the Google homepage. And I was like, okay. I get it. I
think it's bad, but I think it's inevitable.
From a marketing standpoint, I think it's brilliant. You know, I mean, if I can have my products advertise to people who have been obviously thinking about, right, anything that relates to my product. I mean, that's good business sense. The more you can get in front of people, the more that perhaps you'll sell things. So, I mean, I get that part of it, which doesn't seem evil and insidious. But on the other hand, we grew up with a sensibility of a right to privacy. You know, I mean, you guys haven't, but I did, and so it's odd to know that you're being monitored every single thing that you do and what you say, and it's not like I'm paranoid going, well, I have something to hide. That's not what I'm saying. But just the idea that it was very different than the way it was for us. There's an interesting movie, if you haven't seen it. It's an older one with Tom Cruise, whom I hate, but that's a different story. He plays a guy. There's a movie called
Minority Report.
Minority Report. Thank you. That's the one I'm thinking about. And it shows him walking through like a mall or something, and he'll have like an eye scan, and instantly ads will pop up in front of him like holograms and go, Mr. Blah, 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 have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? Like, it just, so, and I think that may be where we're going.
But even more malicious than advertising is news reports. So you already have a feeling, a bias, a cognitive bias, let's say, and as you click on things, you are teaching Facebook or Twitter or whatever what you like, and it's just going to feed you more of what you already like, which puts you in it. You are purifying your echo chamber, so you don't get any opposing ideas, and you just reinforce the same thing you already kind of thought at the beginning. So after a few weeks, months, and years of seeing the same thing, like if you've clicked on an article that says, I hate Hillary Clinton, well, guess what? Guess everything that you're going to see the next day or two is going to be more of that, and you're going to click on those, and it's more and more. And then eventually, a year later, you have no idea what the liberals are talking about because y'all are so far apart. I mean, bad ideas are good in a way, even if they're bad, because they're different than yours, and that's how we learn. You cannot learn if all you're doing is purifying your own echo chamber.
We taught about at the beginning of the year about the idea that you can't grow as a person unless your notions about how life work have been challenged, and you've thought those through. Remember we talked about all of that? All right, that's kind of what he's talking about. If we lose that ability to be challenged, then we cannot grow as individuals or as a nation or as a global community or whatever it happens to be. So you need that friction. You need that counterweight to give you some sort of sense of, oh, well, let me think this through, and maybe you adjust and maybe you don't, but at least you've had a chance to think it out in a different way, and that's what really, I mean, that's intelligence, right? You build intelligence by having the conversation, what is this really, as opposed to just living in that echo chamber or in that bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And used to, if you go back 40, 50 years, look, there's always been fake news, right? But at least every eyeball in America got it from pretty much the same source. There's Walter Cronkite, now we have literally 30 million different news sources depending on your specific Facebook feed. This is why it's so dangerous to get your news from social media, because it's already geared towards you, and it makes it worse. So, yeah, you have to constantly be comparing news sources to get any level of truth out of it.
And I will say, too, that these old news source guys, they competed to be right as opposed to let's compete for attention.
Yeah.
Right? Who is the most trustworthy? Like, that was a real standard.
People
in
accepted
news.
truth,
Yeah.
and you all looked at the same thing. Now you have a specific truth that you're reading constantly, and he does, and everybody. And then you're like, wait, that's not real because I saw a news report that said this. Well,
okay. Well, I brought this up, and I don't know if we did it on a podcast or not, but there's a difference between reality and actuality. Like, everybody has their own reality. That's the word relative. It's focused on you, how I perceive things, how I view the world, depending on whatever I've experienced. But that doesn't mean that you are experiencing actuality. Like, there's something beyond that, and if you don't get multiple sources, you may not ever actually find out what that is. So, there's truth beyond your personal truths that you may be uncomfortable with and therefore avoid or ignore. But that doesn't make it not real. But
Yeah.
it may not be real in your world, right? That's weird.
You know what scared me? 10 years ago, I saw an interview with Bill Gates, and he had a piece of tape on his camera, on his laptop behind him.
Yeah,
and
same
I remember
thing.
thinking, well, if he's doing that.
Who's the Facebook boy? What's his name?
Zuckerberg?
Right, same thing. I saw him with an iPad or something, and he had tape over the camera. And I'm like, oh, well, dang, if Mark Zuckerberg needs to put a piece of tape over his camera, then maybe everybody should.
Hey, raise your hand if you have an Alexa, or what's the other one?
Google
Siri.
Home.
One of the things you can just speak into, and raise your hand if you have something like that in your home.
Well, everybody has it on their phone, right? Siri or whatever, like the same kind of thing.
So when you say its name, you think all of a sudden it clicks on, or is it always listening?
Oh, yeah, it's
and
always.
how many of you have done the DNA thing?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, you're getting your robots ready. One day, you're going to knock on the door, and it's going to be you.
You know what? If they make a robot me, here's what I want. I want them to make a robot me so that they can take off my head, attach it to the robot thing, and just, like, change out parts, and I'll live forever. Yeah, that's going to be a thing
That
for
would
me.
be cool, but
Yeah,
what's probably
I'll
going to
be-
happen
I
is
will
the robot's just going to take you out.
I will volunteer. No, why would he do that?
Exactly. He cares about you.
If I become the robot, then he has to care about me because I'm one of his own.
Well, I think we are the robots, right? We've already merged with. All right,
Okay.
next.
How long did we ramble on that one thing?
I don't know.
All right. Hello.
It's about advertising.
Hi, I'm Abby Poole, and my question is, could world peace ever be achievable?
Well, robots. I think that would help if they kill all the humans and there's just robots. I think it'd be pretty peaceful. Humans are naturally greedy and selfish, and there's a lot of that. There's bad apples. So, no. Well, I mean, but we're more peaceful today than ever.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, my mother is 75 and a half, and I've heard her say, "Oh my goodness, it's so much worse now than it ever was." And I know enough history to know that that's absolutely a false reality for her. Maybe she feels that that's true, but if you look at global context, like, we're actually much better off than we ever have been. More people are living a better standard of life. More people have access to lives that were actually only relegated for wealthy or maybe even ruling class people. We have more free time. We have more leisurely activities. We have more entertainment in our lives. We have more a chance to expand out and explore more of the world around us. And we've conquered certain diseases, and we've been able to communicate more effectively and travel more efficiently. Goods and services. I mean, we live pretty spectacular lives. And the poverty rates around the globe have increasingly and consistently shrunk. So are there problem areas? Yes. Are there hot spots? Yes. Is there warfare? Yeah, but generally speaking, there's less conflict now than at any other point in human history, unless you go back to the time frame when everybody was so isolated they couldn't fight because they were just, running around looking for food. So
and as history teachers, we always get the question, what time period would you like to live in?
I would not.
I would like to live right now.
Yes.
What's a better time than now? Are you going to go back to the 20s and get tuberculosis or something?
Polio.
No. Not have air conditioning?
Well, with the anti-vaxxers, we could be going back to that. That would be.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, or at least some people will. World peace, I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's so much competition for resources, and I don't know. Even if we went to I don't see this happening, but even if we went to a one world government, I just don't even think that that's even possible to create a sense of peace and stability, because there would be eventually people who go, I just don't see things the way you do, and I would like to be free from your one world government. So I just don't see that that's a possibility.
Yeah, and, I think it will continue to improve and get better as long as technology and humans can have an open mind and a dialogue and keep improving. I think we've done that steadily for thousands of years. But, one good asteroid, one good solar flare, and everything gets knocked out. It could be back, we could rewind time.
Also, with the extra connectivity that we have, I know that sometimes it's hard to see it because the news is filled with flare-ups. Fires get people's attention, chaos gets people's attention. But ultimately, there's, again, on a global scale, there's less hatred, there's less sort of interpersonal conflict, because more people know more people from more places, and we understand cultures better, and we can visit each other, and we can travel and trade, and so that makes a huge difference in how we relate to each other. So I think it's, are we as close as we ever will be to a more peaceful world? I don't think so. I think it'll continue to be better, but at the same time, it's a whole lot better than it ever has been.
I think we need aliens. That'll unify us. We get the silver suit with the V-neck, and we all dress the same. We look okay. We've got a foreign invasion. We got to get together as humans. It's time to put our little differences aside. We have these green monsters coming at us, and they want to exterminate us. I think that would unify us. Although that wouldn't really be world peace, because we'd be fighting for our country, or world, and our country. Hey, here's a question for you, too. I would like an answer. So my class, we're doing our March Madness, Greatest American. and there's like a tournament because I do it during basketball season. So, correct. I don't know what that means. Yes. Oh, that's true. Let me give you. Oh, wait, you're not my class. Who is the greatest American? You can't choose Washington or Lincoln. You have to pick somebody else.
You mean from the United States or from the Americas?
They had to become a citizen of the actual United States.
Okay.
So
you just said American, like that could be Canada.
1776, American citizen to today, and it's great, not influential. That's the big thing. I have to be, because I'm always talking about influence. Influence is part of it probably, but fame, character, positive impact, representing our country. Just think to yourselves and come up with that one perfect American that seems to be the best. I'll give you time to think. We'll take another question, but I'm coming back to this, so I want to answer here in a little bit. All right, Next question. And then you think too.
I'm thinking, yeah. Okay.
Abby Tedder, which country do you think is our biggest threat, and what do you think we could do about it?
Russia. Just because they rigged our elections and they're going to do it again, and that's a threat. North Korea, you want to say North Korea or something, or China maybe, but it looks like Russia right now.
I think that you have to think about the different kinds of threats. If you want to think about militaristic threat, then maybe currently it's Russia, but they've been more aggressive in some of the things they've been doing in land grabs and things like, say, the Ukraine. We've been fighting against some of their cohorts in places like Syria and also in Yemen, which Congress just decided to pull out all funding for the Yemeni conflict. I think economically, China, probably the greatest threat. You agree with that?
Yeah. Economically, China. Militarily, Russia. I mean, there's roughly 15,000 nuclear warheads, and between us and Russia, we have over half. So, and we have slightly more than them, but not much. So, I mean,
well, we're about to have more though if the president gets his way. He's talked about like amping back up the nuclear capacity, and we did bounce out of a nuclear arms treaty with Russia. That was we were neither one really adhering to it anyway, but at least there was some sort of moderate level of we're not going to do that. Now it's a free for all, perhaps. It depends on how we get the funding, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if global warming continues to go the way scientists predict. That's going to shift balances of power as well.
Yeah.
As people flee from the coast. I mean, 80% of humans live on the coast. So if that ever goes underwater, like Miami's pumping water out of their city right now, that would be a pretty big demographic shift and change. That could also play into this whole.
Who's our biggest threat? Us? I mean, just people in general. I don't know. Like but I think I stand by those answers. Yeah.
Yeah. Or a caravan coming at our border.
Caravan. It could be some. It could be some war-torn country where militants rise up and decide to do something dastardly. It could be something that's that vague. You know, it might not be an actual country that has has a solidified political system that can moderate it in some way. The rogue elements, I think, are maybe the biggest threat to our stability in the long run.
And that of course is the fear that the whole terrorist thing is legit, because one group of terrorists gets a hold of any kind of nuclear weapon, and a tiny group of people could do a massive amount of damage. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been the big fear of since the collapse of the Soviet Union.
You have an opinion on Saudi Arabia? On whether they're really our friends or not?
Oh, well.
I'm voting no.
I'm voting no. I mean, it's an oppressive regime that has no respect for freedoms and, equality, stuff that we value, like feminism.
I know a lot of times people focus on Iran, but I think Saudi Arabia, because we've been on their side a lot, and yet they tend to use our help for other diabolical purposes, And I just don't know that I trust. I don't know that I trust everything that's coming out of there, even though this Mohammed bin Salman he seems like he could be a reformer, but I just don't know that I trust that thoroughly.
When Obama was leaving
office. Especially after the Khashoggi killing.
When Obama was leaving office, and a reporter asked him, what keeps you up at night? What country? He would never say he was dodging, and then eventually he just said Pakistan. That's the country that keeps him up at night. So, I don't know. There's always dangers out there, I assume. All right. So, do you have an answer to my question, who is the greatest American? I see no one. Raise your hand and just shout it out.
You mean currently?
Yes. What
or
is it?
ever.
Einstein. Salk. Wow, that's a interesting. Einstein, I've heard. Edison, FDR, things like that. Jonas Salk, who made the vaccine for polio. Influence, positive impact, character. I don't know about his personal life or if he's his. So Salk became rich, and then he donated it all to medical science. When he, wow, man,
That's
Okay.
That's a pretty good answer.
and that's a global impact. I mean, you're talking about polio worldwide. That's a great answer. He's not as famous. It would hurt him on the fame scale because there's people that don't know who that is, except you
why
guys.
why is that? You think? I mean, that's a pretty miraculous thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like Edward Jenner, who cured smallpox. These names just get lost. We like our leaders. We like our presidents and celebrities. I mean, if he would have went out of his way to run for office, or, I don't know, but it's because that's what he did, and then he just kind of shifts off in the background, and we don't. Who is the most famous medical? I mean, Walter Reed that cured yellow fever. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you
We
sneaking up on the
forget about the
microphone?
doctors that save our lives.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Next question.
Hey, it's me again.
Hey, it's me again.
Hello. It's me.
Who are your favorite left-wing, right-wing, and moderate authors, writers?
Oh, well, I don't read, so no. I don't. I mean, I can't just.
From a history standpoint, or just
Well, you've got left wing. Like I watch news shows now more and podcasts because I'm driving. So like a conservative guy's like Ben Shapiro, but he's not an author. He's not like writing books left and right.
yeah.
David
Upton
Pockman or
Sinclair is a guy that I read The Jungle. And
Oh,
that
that's way
really
back in the
stood out
day,
to
yeah.
me too. So you could talk about people like Steinbeck maybe as kind of left leaning at least, because the idea. Have you ever read Grapes of Wrath? Okay, well, if you do read it, then it talks about the plight of the migrant workers, and especially during the Dust Bowl era. So, I mean, there were a lot of aspects to that you could say, well, he was probably leaning hardcore left. I don't know if he was a socialist or not. He might have been. Sinclair definitely was running for president under a was he communist or just socialist? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But the socialism was big during the progressive era. That's a lot of them were pushing that.
Mhm.
There is a book that I just read called The Red and Blue, The Red and the Blue, Steve Kornacki. He's a political guy. He generally is unbiased. He's probably left. But he traces this tribalism that we have today with red and blue states. Because we used to not have that. You used to not look at a map and see red and blue. And he blames it all on Newt Gingrich back in the 80s, and he traces it all the way to today. It's really interesting. So if you're interested in how modern day politics has gotten where it is and became a national thing instead of a more localized thing, it's interesting. The red and the blue. All right, next question. We got time for a couple more.
Hey.
Yes, Ian Hollis again. I was just wondering what distinctions, if any, should be made between terms like leftist, democratic, and liberal.
Yes. I mean, we could trace those words back to the French Revolution and go into all that, but those words get thrown around so often, and they can have completely different meanings depending on who you're talking to.
Mhm.
What a liberal is today is not what a liberal was, before FDR.
Classical liberal.
Classic liberal and
Yeah.
left wing and
Well, I gave this example once before. If we're talking about someone who's an absolute monarch, and then you have someone who comes along who's just a constitutional monarch, that person's a leftist to the absolute monarch. So it just sort of depends on where you stand, what that might mean to you, right?
like our country was founded as a liberal nation, and we were pretty much liberal for 100 years. We really weren't conservative at all in any way because compared to the other governments.
Not from the old school conservative movement, which was monarchy, right?
Right, but the conservative movement we have now only goes back to like 1964. So
I think that anyone, depending on, it doesn't really matter the political party. If you have a moderate stance compared to the hardcore people in your group, then you're going to be center left of them. And maybe they just dislike you because you're a moderate. I mean, I've heard people called out because of being moderates. Why aren't you extreme like us? Well, that to me is crazy, right? So does the Democratic Party itself embrace more liberal style agendas? Do they lean left more traditionally than what we see with Republicans? Maybe, but I know that there's a lot of moderate Republicans too who I think have a shared vision with a lot of Democrats that maybe that just doesn't get part of the conversation as often as it should.
Well, kind of along those lines, do you think it's more of a polarization today or a modernization, or like kind of? Do you think we're being pushed towards the middle or to the edges?
I think it's almost like depends on where you get your news, Ian. I mean, really, if you watch certain shows or listen to certain things, you would think that we're at each other's throat constantly, and maybe the pundits are. But regular Americans that I know typically just kind of live life and go, yeah, okay, cool, let's just be, right?
Yeah, if you talk to human beings, you don't notice it much. But if you watch, there's been 2 bumps. Cable news in the 90s, starting with CNN 24/7 News, that was a little different. And then they figured out they could appeal to a certain group, and here comes Fox. And then social media changed the game.
Well,
So that's
assuming that the media is a representation of every American's views, right?
right, yeah.
Well,
but this is
yeah.
what I was talking about with purifying your echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to watch something that already you believe in, and it's just going to make it worse.
If I'm a 24-hour news cycle group, then I'm not interested necessarily in the news itself. I'm interested in how we can talk about things that would generate interest in what we're saying to get more advertisers in. It's a marketing thing to make more money for the actual group. So one of the indicators that you can see, if it's more opinion based than it is actually reporting, then all of a sudden it's about drawing viewers rather than telling a very specific or more accurate or more well-rounded version of a story. And so, like I said, but I think that the way we consume information or the way we're being fed information, that might be more accurate, has become kind of extreme. Because like you said, people do live in that echo chamber.
I think the best thing you could do now is to take some self-responsibility, and when news comes out, you go see what CNN's saying, you see what Fox is saying, BBC, and you make up your own mind as to what you think, because the truth is usually somewhere in the middle.
But you should just understand that the more opinion-based groups have a real agenda that they're trying to push, whether we're talking about CNN or Fox. I mean, I think those are the 2 probably most widely known groups, right? But there's others, obviously. But again, I think that if we're just talking about people, right? It's not as flared as it seems to be if you watch the noisemakers on TV or online.
Right.
Anyway.
All right, last question maybe, or 2 quick ones.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Wynn, and what are your thoughts on Trump nominating Herman Cain for a seat on the Federal Reserve Board?
What are the qualifications? I'm not even sure why he's HUD secretary.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I would have to research what an actual Federal Reserve Board, how many there are, and what exactly their privy is. I mean, this is something that was invented by Wilson back in the day, and I think there's 8 or so that kind of oversee the private banks and kind of help regulate.
I wonder about any Trump nominee, to tell you the truth, because he tends to go with people he just tends to personally like, as opposed to people who might be really good at the job. I mean, for example, the guy who was the Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke, was a guy who actually was anti-environmental, and whoever the new guy is, I can't think because Zinke's gone, but whoever the new guy is that just got in really has a history of fighting against environmental issues and environmental protections because he's an oil guy. And so, I don't know that he vets them in the same way that we would see a traditional president do that. So why does he pick Herman Cain for this? You'd really have to ask him. I don't know any other.
I think they give him a list and he just goes, him. That's a funny name.
Maybe because Cain
Herman
would
Cain.
say yes. I don't know. Anyway.
All right. Next question.
Hi, I'm Leica Stillman. And okay, so Apple recently released the Apple Card, Apple TV, AirPods, and HomePod. Not to mention they are planning on establishing TV subscription services so they can compete with companies like Netflix and Hulu. What are your thoughts on Apple venturing out in different markets, branching out away from phones and computers? And also, I read a blog on this, and it stated it talked about like Apple's strategy, and it stated it's not about being first for Apple, but in providing an Apple-centric option that's good enough to get you hooked in and uninterested in ever leaving.
Yeah, I mean, iRobot, right? I was feeling bad for Apple, and so I'm glad that they didn't have a TV service, so I'm glad they're branching out. I was kind of worried about them just having a monopoly on cell phones and computers to some degree.
Now they can be sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, you've got these Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon. That's your 4 big tech giants that are ruling the world right now. As automation increases, these are the groups that make all the money from it. And I'm sure it's pretty cutthroat competition, although I know that these companies do work together on a limited basis. I'm sure that they communicate. However that is, I don't know what some meeting they have under a mountain that they have, but talk about the next president they're going to pick,
Yeah. Some like Illuminati kind of thing. What I think about that is that the consumers will make a judgment on the quality, and then we will see if it lasts. So if their services are superior, then good for them, and people will vie for that option. If they are subpar or they're just mediocre at best, or people just don't see any reason to switch away from what they already know and like, then I just don't see that this is going to be eventful for them. I don't blame them for trying, because I think there's a good market out there, and maybe they can compete enough to give others push them to maybe enhance their services. So we might, as consumers, actually win because of this.
A big problem that I have with these corporations, the big 4, is they don't pay taxes really either. We pay our taxes; they get around it.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the socialism for corporations that we were talking about a while ago.
Right. You need to research this dude named Andrew Yang, who is also running for president. He is for basic universal.
Yeah.
Basically,
income.
He calls it a freedom dividend. If you're an American citizen over 18, right now he's promoting $1,000 a month because his automation, and of course we've talked about this ad nauseum when truck drivers and all that go away.
Mm-hmm.
And, but beyond that, he also is supporting a value-added tax, which most countries in Europe already do, where these companies would have to pay a value-added tax so that the money that Amazon and Facebook and Apple are making goes actually back to the consumers. That might
should
be
do that with the
something
oil companies too.
Yeah, really. I mean, by the way, people go social. It's not. It's going to kill innovation if you give everybody. Alaska's been doing this for 36 years. Like, if you move to Alaska, you get an oil stipend. That's about $1,000 a month, and it comes from their oil that they sell that they did a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to make 1 billion people move to Alaska, of all states, but it can work. So, I don't know. It's gonna be he's not going to become president, but if he gets that conversation going,
the idea that mega corporations shouldn't pay taxes, and we've been convinced that that's true and necessary, I think that's one of the biggest scams that we've ever pushed over on the American people. The idea that they can't make it if they only make $900 billion profit this quarter. That's ridiculous.
And the force.
I mean, good for them, capitalism, but at the same time, like, give some back to the system, son.
Yeah, and the 4 states that had the most automation done over the last 5 years, they all voted for Trump because they have lost thousands of jobs.
And they thought he was going to reverse that trend?
And he said, I'm the one that can bring the jobs back, but they didn't know why they lost the jobs. It's not to foreign composition, it's to automation. Go to Walmart. We're in the middle of this thing.
How many people might lose jobs if he does go ahead and close that border? Especially for an extended amount of time. You're talking about billions of dollars a day in lost revenue back and forth across that border. And again, I don't think he's really going to do it. Or if he does, that would be, I think, horrendous. And those people do you think that would be something that would cause people to push away from him then at that point? Because they go, oh my God, he really doesn't care about us.
Well, I think the only way that he loses supporters is if the economy goes in the tank and he can't craft some sort of blame. Well, it wasn't me. It was, if he can't do that quick enough, that could hurt him because that's the one thing he can hang his wig on is the economy. I
honestly wonder how many people voted for him based on the fact that, they like him, as opposed to the fact that, oh my God, I hate Hillary. I mean, I wonder what the actual number is there.
I don't know, but he offered change. And if you're somebody in the Midwest who has seen wages stay the same or people lost their jobs and he's saying something that's pie in the sky, but...
What does that say about the state of American politics when he's the most trustworthy?
I know. I don't know. By the way, it's predicted that 30% of malls will close down in the next 5 years.
I think
So
ours.
if you're planning on working at a mall, at Dillard's or J, you might not want to take that job.
Our mall, like God bless them, bless their little hearts. They have the same. They need to update. You know what I'm saying? Like there's been. I don't know what the deal is with that. Have you been to our mall?
I have before.
I wish it would transform in some way.
It's transforming.
Just
into
something
Amazon.
just something as simple as.
I just don't know it.
It seems like it's the same carpet they had when they opened in 1981.
Like electric blue.
Doesn't seem like it's changed at all. It's just gotten grungier. So I mean, I want them to do things. They're actually the theater behind the mall is actually like doubling its size. I think that's a good thing for a town this size. We need to have more like entertainment options. I think, and that would be a great start. Maybe that brings more life back to that area. I don't know. It's kind of a weird.
I don't think it's going to be long until we'll go. Remember when we used to go to the store? Remember that? We used to buy our groceries. We had to actually get out of our house and go to a store and get milk.
First time a
Wasn't that
drone
weird?
drops off a pizza, I'm going to do a little dance. I think that's going to be cool.
Well, the drones are interesting if they're dropping it, like UPS dropping, because that just turns into like a duck hunting game for rednecks. What'd you get? What'd you get?
Oh. Oh, no. Here comes another one.
Gotta get your guns. We're
Load
shooting
up.
it down.
All right. Hey,
all right.
that took an interesting turn. All right. Hey, this has been History After Hours. Thanks for joining us.
Would you guys think it's a double standard for Citizens United for corporations to be considered as people when it comes to donating money to a campaign, but not paying taxes?
Yeah, that's cute. Yeah.
That's a good argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
So corporations are treated as individuals, so they can donate
While they're
this through
donating,
PAC money,
right. But they don't have to pay.
but they don't have to pay their taxes.
Yeah.
That definitely is a double standard. Okay, we're about to exit it out. I got Tesla, and I heard, who was the other one? Albert Einstein? Anyone else? Have anybody? Gates. Who? Salk. Oh, I said Tesla. I meant Salk. Salk, Einstein, Gates. Greatest American? Sure.
Okay, so you know Elon Musk, this past weekend he released a song called R.I.P. Harambe, and it's legit.
Oh no.
Elon Musk released a song.
Are we bringing back the Harambe thing for real?
I still don't get the
R.I.P.
the deal about that.
Harambe. I'm gonna have to listen to it now.
Okay.
That's gonna be our intro next
Greatest American. The correct answer is Bob Ross.
week. Bob Ross.
I tell you,
Happy little trees for everybody. That's what.
Fred Rogers. Somebody brought him up. I was like, man, that's a good guy. He did a lot.
Yeah. No.
Unselfishly. PBS.
And Jim Henson. The idea that they brought along the Children's Television Network and changed the course of education for young people, because there really wasn't anything that was geared towards teaching. A lot of people were like, "Oh, children just need to play and do. They won't sit and learn." But actually, he made the learning fun, and so Sesame Street. I think Sesame Street is a phenomenon.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I'm going Eisenhower. I think he was a great American.
Eisenhower's been my pick before.
Yeah,
so
you have him on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I like me some Eisenhower. I think I'm gonna stick with that.
All right. Well, that is History After Hours. Thank you, Collective Coffee, and we'll see you next time.
Ew.
Goodbye.